We need to audit our emotional bandwidth, Mara said, using the same corporate cadence she used to fire junior associates at her PR firm. She sat on our velvet beige sofa in Chicago, swirling a glass of Pinot Noir. I feel like we're stagnating, Elias. I need a sabbatical from us to recalibrate. Just a month. I'm going to the Aspen Leadership Retreat alone, and I think you should stay with your brother. I looked at her, stunned. I was an architectural restorationist. I spent my life fixing structure that were crumbling, reinforcing foundations that were rotting from the inside. I should have seen the cracks in my own living room. A month? I asked, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. To recalibrate. Exactly, she smiled, devoid of warmth. I need to know if I'm with you because I want to be, or because it's efficient. Don't make this a drama, Elias. It's just a pause. She left 2 days later for Aspen. I was supposed to pack a bag and go to my brother's place in the suburbs. Instead, I stayed behind to secure the apartment for her return. That's when the smart home betrayed her. We had a digital photo frame in the hallway synced to our shared cloud account. I was walking past it with a basket of laundry when a new photo popped up. It wasn't a landscape of snowy mountains. It was a selfie inside a dimly lit cabin. Mara was laughing, her head thrown back, and a man was kissing her neck. I froze. I knew him, Julian, her firm's biggest client. The man she complained was too demanding, but always took her calls at 10 p.m. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the frame. I swiped left. Another photo, the two of them in a jacuzzi, time-stamped 3 hours ago. Then a video clip Julian toasting with a glass of whiskey, saying, to the pause, best idea you ever had. The realization hit me not like a server crash, but like the settling of a heavy stone. The sabbatical wasn't about finding herself. It was a trial run with Julian to see if he was a viable upgrade. I was the safety net, the backup server, the efficiency. I walked into my study and looked at a blueprint I had rolled up in the corner for 6 months. It was a restoration project in Kyoto, Japan, a 100-year-old Machiya traditional wooden townhouse that was being converted into a heritage tea house. The lead architect, Kenji, had begged me to join, citing my expertise in structural timber. I had turned it down because Mara said Japan was too far from her network, and she couldn't handle the time difference. I pulled out my phone. It was 11 p.m. in Chicago, which meant it was 1 p.m. in Kyoto. Kenji, I said when he picked up, is the position still open? Elias. Yes, but we start next week. The timeline is aggressive. I can be there in 3 days. The next 72 hours were a blur of surgical precision. I didn't just pack. I erased myself. I sold my car to a dealership that paid cash. I broke the lease on our apartment, paying the penalty fee upfront so my name was legally removed from the contract effective the first of the next month. Mara's name was the only one left on the deed. I hired a specialized moving service to crate my books, tools, and clothes. Everything else, the furniture we bought together, the art she picked out, the expensive espresso machine, I left exactly where it was. I wrote no letter. I left no ring. Leaving a note implies there is still a conversation to be had. Instead, I left the lease transfer documents on the kitchen counter, next to her spare key. I boarded the flight to Narita with 2 suitcases and a feeling that my chest cavity had been hollowed out with a scoop. Kyoto was a shock to the system, exactly what I needed. The work was grueling. The Machiya was beautiful, but rotting. My days were spent smelling of cedar dust and old rain, communicating in broken Japanese and hand gestures. There was no time to doom scroll Instagram. For the first 2 weeks, my phone remained offline except for work apps. When I finally logged back into my personal email, the floodgates opened. Mara, day 2 of her return. Where are you? The apartment feels weird. Mara, day 4. Why is your name off the lease? The landlord called me for next month's rent. This isn't funny, Elias. Mara, day 7. I know you saw the photos. It was a mistake. Julian means nothing. Stop being a coward and call me. Mara, day 10. You can't just move to Japan. I called your brother. You're insane. Come home and we can fix this. I archived the emails without replying. In the silence of my small tatami mat apartment, I started to heal. I met Yumi, a kintsugi artist contracted to repair the antique ceramics found in the tea house foundation. Kintsugi is the art of repairing broken pottery with lacquer dusted or mixed with powdered gold. One afternoon, watching her carefully paint a gold seam over a cracked tea bowl, she caught me staring. You look at the crack with sadness, Yumi said softly, her English precise. But the break is part of the history. The object is more beautiful now because it has survived. I feel like I'm mostly cracks right now, I admitted. Then you will need a lot of gold, she smiled. We started having dinner together. Ramen at standing bars, quiet walks through the Arashiyama bamboo grove. It wasn't a whirlwind romance, it was a slow, steady construction of trust. Yumi didn't need me to be her efficiency. She had her own life, her own art. She just liked having me around to share the quiet moments. 6 months passed. The tea house was finished. I was offered a permanent contract for a project in Kanazawa. I accepted. Then, Mara showed up. She didn't call. She just appeared at the tea house opening ceremony, wearing a trench coat that cost more than my monthly rent in Kyoto. She looked tired. Her power glow was dimmed. She cornered me in the garden. You're hard to find, she said, her voice tight. I had to threaten your brother with a lawsuit just to get the city. Hello, Mara, I said. I felt surprisingly calm. My heart rate didn't spike. This, she gestured around at the serene garden, is a nice sabbatical, Elias, but it's been 6 months. The pause is over. I broke up with Julian. He was hollow. I realized I need someone who actually builds things. Someone real. She reached for my hand. I've forgiven you for running away. I'm ready for you to come home. I even looked up flights. The audacity was breathtaking. She had rewritten the narrative so that my departure was the transgression she had to forgive. I stepped back, putting my hands in my pockets. Mara, I said gently, you didn't pause us. You broke us. And I'm not a streaming service you can unsubscribe from and resubscribe to when the content elsewhere gets boring. But we were a team, she pleaded, her eyes welling up. Doesn't 3 years mean anything? It means I learn what I don't want, I said. I'm not coming back to Chicago. I'm not fixing the apartment. I'm not fixing us. I'm building something new here. Yumi walked out onto the veranda then, holding 2 cups of tea. She saw Mara, paused, and looked at me with a question in her eyes. Is everything okay, Eli-san? I looked at Yumi, at the gold paint stain on her thumb, at the kindness in her face. Then I looked at Mara, who was checking her watch, probably calculating how long this negotiation would take. Yes, Yumi, I said, turning my back on Mara. Everything is perfect. Mara stood there for a moment, realized there was no manager to speak to, no leverage to pull. She turned and walked out of the garden, her heels clicking loudly on the stone path until the sound faded into the hum of the city. I took the tea from Yumi. An old ghost? Yumi asked. Something like that, I said, taking a sip. But I think the cracks are finally sealed. I stayed in Japan. I didn't just find a new life. I restored the one I had let crumble. And this time, I filled the seams with gold.